All right. Well, hello everyone. I'm Batuan from Mobidictum. Today we are hosting Jon Hook from BoomBit, VP of Publishing. We are going to discuss about publishing deals, hyper-casual genre, some special topic about the Turkish market, and so on. Welcome, Jon.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Well, I won't go too much chit-chatting. I will just go directly to my questions. Well, we know BoomBit from 2012. You are an international gaming publishing and development company. You have offices from US, China, UK, Poland, and Slovakia. As I know, more than 100 people are working with BoomBit right now. But we knew BoomBit as a casual development and publishing studio. Recently, you changed to hyper-casual genre. What was the decision behind that, and why is the change?
Yeah, so I mean, look, hyper-casual is nothing new to BoomBit, right? We were there early days with Ketchup, with sort of Dancing Line that we did with Cheetah. And then, you know, we expanded into other game genres, into idle, into midcore, into RPG. And then we went through IPO in 2019, which was great. Obviously injected a lot of investment into the company. And now we've kind of refocused on hyper-casual, and we've done it for a couple of reasons. One, you know, having been in hyper-casual for a while, it's definitely evolving as a category, right? And I think we're going to talk about it, but where it's going, you're going to require a different set of tools, right? You're going to need things like experience around sort of IEPs, as hyper-casual games have more IEPs in them versus just ads. We're going to start seeing things like live ops. So BoomBit in a great position to bring everything we've learned from, you know, idle, from merge, from casual, from, you know, midcore, and bring it back into hyper-casual games and take a different approach versus, you know, some great companies already in hyper-casual that maybe see hyper-casual a different way, perhaps as it is now. And also from a, you know, business perspective, you know, hyper-casual games are great when you have a share price, right? Because you have more immediate revenue and profit coming from your games versus, you know, IP-based sort of mid-core games where you've got much longer development time and then you've got to wait a lot longer for that return on revenue. So, you know, also from a business perspective, you know, we've still got some very successful IP-based games as well. But you know, our hyper-casual games are great because we have to report on a quarterly basis, and you know, the development of our hyper-casual games has accelerated massively. So it enables us to generate more sort of regular and sustained revenue.
Well, definitely, being a casual mid-core studio and having live ops operations, like having this knowledge and know-how. When you bring it to hyper-casual, you definitely see the value, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, you can't just spin up a live ops team overnight, right? You can't just suddenly spin up 10 years experience, developing, designing, you know, the whole process for like a casual game. You know, you can definitely study other game genres for sure, but you know, I've worked at places before where you try new game genres and it just doesn't work, right? Because, you know, UA for hyper-casual is kind of unique. Just like the way you run UA for like a mid-core game is very different. You're targeting a very different audience. You've got a different blend of revenue in your games. So yeah, it's, you know, we see it as a big advantage, especially for where hyper-casual is starting to go already. And, you know, we believe we've got a lot of those tools needed, you know, to build some slightly different types of hyper-casual games.
All right. Well, right now you're also developing hyper-casual games in-house, right? And you
yeah,
also
we have. I mean, you said 100. We've got more like 200 people at BoomBit now. So okay. We have the majority of the team are in Gdansk, and we have a great internal development team that have been building, you know, all sorts of other games as well. And again, you can probably see if you look at our account, we've got, you know, a a fairly, I think, distinctive style for hyper-casual games. If you study, some of our card games, for example, and the art style of those, and you can see how we've been heavily influenced from what we've learned in other genres versus, just creating hyper-casual games that all basically pretty much look the same to some extent in terms of art style.
Right.
So yeah, we have an internal team, and as of the start of this year, we now are working with a handful of selected external studios and developers as well.
All right. Well, what kind of I won't say requirements, but what does a typical hyper-casual studio looks like? The ones that who works with BoomBit, because you said handful of studios. How do they look like? The team structure and everything.
Yeah. So again, look, hyper-casual is built on volume. It's how it works, right? Just historically, it's all been about volume of prototype CTR tests to catch those handful of games that stand a chance of going through that publishing process. We've taken a different view on where we think it's going, in that we want to work closely with a select number of studios. And, personally, having worked this way and heard the feedback from developers, I don't think it's sustainable to have a model where you have a publishing manager that's looking after like 10 to 20 studios, right? That, let's say they're doing 2 games a month, that's 40 games. How much value can you really add versus just burning through CTR test, prototype, did it hit the benchmark? No, on to the next one, and just keep going through this factory. So that business model is definitely still valid. The approach we're taking is, we're still heavily driven by data, but we want to get back to actually making games, right? And testing ideas and thesis. So, what we're looking for is similar to what developers will be asked from other publishers. Are you, how quickly can you build a prototype? Speed is still very important. Unity is still the default platform, but we're very open-minded and we work with Buildbox devs as well. So that's kind of unique because not every publisher will do that. So long as they take our SDK. I talk a lot about 3 pillars of like game ideation. So, clones, for me, that's not our business style. It's a part of any game genre, not just hyper casual, but that's not really what we're after. But these kind of 3 pillars, I think you should have, just original ideas, anything that inspires you, right? Just whatever it is, let's test it. Then I think there's ideas that are based around certain trending mechanics that are important that we provide our developers. And then there's that bucket that it's there's great games in the charts. It's, again, how can you add something onto that? So not directly copy it, but adding a new mechanic, improving the UI, changing the monetization. So we're looking at devs that can ultimately bring their own ideas, right? Because what there's no shortage of in the world is talented developers that will do work for hire. But we're looking for devs that will bring their own ideas and also want to do something a bit different, right? So maybe you've come from a different game genre and you love physics-based games and you want to figure out how to bring it into hyper-casual. And we're looking for entrepreneurs, right? We want people that still have that passion, right? And haven't built, an army that are working with 8 different publishers. We want people that want to build a business, right? And we have a great track record for kind of investing in and actually helping build teams. And it's a kind of blend of, your traditional publishing model, but actually investing in a studio as well for the long term, right? To build a, truly independent game studio and work the way they want to work, right? So it's to start with a traditional publishing relationship, but what we would love to do for any studios we work with is kind of set them free from this publishing model, help them and teach them about UA and monetization so they can ultimately self-publish and create a process and metrics that work for them. So, to do that, of course, we have to talk to lots of developers, and there needs to be some pre-existing working relationship for sure, so that we get to know each other and our teams work well. But it's not for everyone. Like, there's, if you're starting up, there's loads of great publishers out there that can help you build, that studio initially, give you monthly payments, and that's fine. We're really talking about, again, entrepreneurs that really want to build, not just, hyper casual can be where we are now, but they want to build a truly great mobile game studio. So again, that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and people that are commercially savvy and understand the economics of gaming as well. So a real mix of factors that we look for.
Well, that's a really great summary. We can say that you kind of code developing in some of the areas with these studios, like in the sense of coaching in different areas, like the monetization part, the game design, and so on. And you are looking for the people who are thinking long term, not just have a model where they can live off with the publisher's funding, but building a sustainable business model and become a great mobile studio.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages of, again, having a 200 person team with experience in different genres is we've done it for a couple of our recent games. If you need support in specific areas, so if you need an artist or you need a coder, we can match you up with people in the team that have got the right experience for your genre of game, right? So if it's an action game, then you're going to need a different, someone that maybe has got experience in action games versus, a car game or ASMR. So we definitely are big believers in building teams around developers as well. But the other thing that I really believe in is, I think if you're going to add value to devs, there's amazing hyper-casual developers out there that have got incredible ideas, right? But unless it's some of the bigger studios that have hired the top talent, I think game design and like level design and being really data led is something they need help with. Now, what I've observed you typically get in hyper casual is, a dev, you'll be working with a publishing manager who's more like an account manager. So they may be able to give you a bit of first line sort of feedback, but they then need to send your game to lots of different people to get feedback, and it sort of slows the process down. So the model we've tried to build is hire publishing managers that actually have worked in a hyper-casual studio before, so either developer side, or actually have their background looks more like a game producer. So they don't need to go and talk to lots of different people in the business. They can actually work with you one-to-one and add real value on initial concepts, changing camera angles, and just acting as an extension of your team as a game designer, level designer. Again, in the spirit of trying to build games. So we're very particular on who we're bringing into the business, and we are very determined to maintain a small number of studios so that we really can give this one-to-one feedback, with real open-mindedness that we're not going to succeed every time, because that's the hyper-casual business. But the important thing is that our studios are always getting feedback rather than just, it's not working. Well, why is it not working? So they can learn when they return with their next prototype. Because I think for me, that's really the number one question developers need to worry about, right? When you're picking a publisher, if the first question you're asking is about commercial terms, you need to relook at what's important to you. Your first 15 questions should all be about knowing what you need as a studio, right? What skills are you lacking? Do you need analytics? Do you need game design? Do you need artists? Is that publisher matched you in terms of the types of games that they've been successful scaling, for argument's sake? So I think there's a whole load of questions you should be asking a publisher way before you actually start discussing commercial terms. And, being really transparent when we talk to studios and they come to me and the first thing they ask me for is, well, how much is it per prototype? Generally, that's not the type of studio that's I know is going to culturally work for us. It's developers that come to us and they're just really excited and passionate about games, and the commercial is just the last bit. We spend like an hour just purely talking about games and trends and what's worked, what hasn't worked. And for me, that's a great starting point for any developer publishing relationship.
Well, that makes sense. Usually, like a lot of, how can I say, a lot of times I see some studios working on volumes. Obviously, everyone is trying to make a hit game, right? Because that will bring the money. But I see some studios just focusing on volume to get more funding from the publisher. And definitely, this is not a model that you are looking for. Once there is a hit game, usually what we call a hit game is the one that on the top chart, at least on the front page, like, okay, our game is on the top chart and so on. What do you think about being on the top chart? Because the top chart can change a lot pretty fast, right? What do you think about the relation between the top chart and the profitability?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and so I think they're actually very different things. So when you're looking at working with a publisher, as we've just discussed, there's lots of questions you want to ask. But one of the things you need to decide personally is what's important to you, right? Is it, you know, having that number one game, or is actually, you know, net profit the most important thing? Because it sounds a weird thing to say, but they're not actually the same thing, right? There's a hyper casual business model that is designed to get games in the top charts and drive revenue. And there's another model that actually prioritizes net profit. And what it doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that you don't want to get top of the charts, but it means what you don't do is you're not sacrificing game profits to reinvest in terms of UA to make sure you've got that top 10 game, right? So really simply, that's what I'm talking about. And it also depends on the publisher you work with in terms of where their business is at, right? Because if they're in the process of raising investment, then it's really a marketing exercise. You know, that VC or investor is going to want to see all these games tops of the charts and big revenue, and they may be more forgiving that you've got okay margins, but right now, because you're growing, they want to see revenue growth and top charts. Now at BoomBit, we're a publicly listed company, so we have a share price, and our shareholders care about profit, right? So for us, all we care about is ARPU. So it's great because it gives us a lot of flexibility rather than these very rigid benchmarks. So we don't look at hyper casual as a category. We look at the specific categories of games. So, you know, action games, for example, you get a better LTV, or like car games, you know, we see amazing LTV and ROAS from our car games, which enables you to actually bid higher than the traditional established hyper casual business model, where you can only scale a game if it's got, you know, 5 cents CPI. So I think for a developer, it's really important. And I've heard some shocking stories from developers who've had some like games top of the charts with millions of downloads and should be earning 7-figure net profit checks. And they're getting, you know, don't get me wrong, it's still good money, but sort of low 6 figures. So you can go on the BoomBit website. All of our financial information is kind of disclosed. But, you know, for us as a business model, it is quite a big difference versus, you know, some pure play hyper casual publishers that aren't publicly listed, because their focus is games in the top charts. So we've got a couple of games in the charts right now that, you know, you wouldn't find them in the, you know, the top 20, but they've made north of 7 figures in terms of net profit, right? So again, it comes back to my point. We want to work with developers that are entrepreneurial, that understand the economics here and understand, you know, some of the tricks that you can use. You know, you or me could get a game to the top of the charts. You just you find the best CTR creative that doesn't necessarily represent gameplay, and you can get loads of installs and get to the top of the charts, but your LTV is going to be shocking. Now that may change because there was a ruling in the UK today banning some of the Playrix hacks for Homescape, so maybe that will change. But you can do it, or you just basically sacrifice game profit and bid really aggressively, provided you've got a low CPI. Monetize the hell out of your game in the first 4-6 levels. And great, you've got a game that's top of the charts for like a week, and then it just disappears and has made no money, and you know, maybe the dev gets a bit of money out of it. So yeah, it's really important. You know, it's why we're having this conversation, that I think when devs enter into any contract or into hyper casual, they really understand the economics of it and what's happening behind the scenes, because this is stuff that they just won't see. And they'll get a check and they'll go, oh, this is great, but you need to do the math on some of these. You know, I've done the maths, like some of these, you know, it seems great, all these upfront payments and commission-based deals, or, you know, prepayment for a certain number of installs. But if you actually do the maths, and I know it's hard to do because, you know, unlike us, most publishers will not share all of the information about your UA with you. But really, if you do the math, you're probably looking at like 80-20 rev share. So for me, my advice to a studio would be, I get it. If you need, you know, that minimum guarantee, or you need an upfront payment to hire more people, take the money. But if you're confident in your ability, always take rev share and always try and negotiate for 50-50, right? 80-20, 70-30. To me, you know, like, I just don't see how that's fair when developers are bringing so much to the table, right? I can't, I know there are some developers on deals in terms of 80-20, but I don't see how that is fair given what developers bring to the table.
That's a nice shout out for developers and publishers as well. The game developers should understand top charts doesn't mean a lot of money, right? Always try to do the math on that side and push a great deal, not just the upfront payment.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Top charts, if there've been some amazing games that have sustained top charts because they've got that balance between CPI and LTV, right? So don't get me wrong. There are some games that hit the charts and sustain, like say top 100 for 12 months plus and make a lot of money. So I'm not discounting that, but I'm saying there are too many games, and you can look at, like Tengen data, for example, to see like the average, or game analytics data for the average lifetime of a game. Increasingly now you check the charts, like let's say Saturday morning, and you come back the following Saturday, how many of those top 20 games are still there, right? And that's the point I'm making, which is these games initially, the publisher, they post it all over their social media channels. We've got this game in the top 10, because what they want is to use that game to then drive more, other devs see that game and they're like, oh wow, that publisher must be amazing, I'll send you my latest game, right? So that's what I would be more impressed with as a developer is, okay, that game, how long have you managed to hold that game, let's say in the top 50? Have you had it there for over a month? Because that should tell you that publisher is very strong at not just, UA monetization, but actually like game design, right? They know how to build and design a sustainable hyper-casual game. I mean, a month, again, I'd be happy, some people would be happy with a month, but, let's say they've got a handful of games that have been in the charts for 6 months plus. That's, that as a developer, if you're thinking about profit and making money, that's what you should be looking for.
Makes sense. Well, right now, a lot of development is happening in Turkey, as you know. You have one Turkish publisher manager working with you. Do you have investment plans for Turkey? If you have, what does it mean for Turkish developers?
Yeah, I mean, look, Turkey's the #1 market for hyper-casual, right? There's so much talent there. It's unbelievable. The number of studios and, the team at Rollick have done an incredible job, for the Turkish market, but for hyper-casual as a whole. So again, as we discussed, we're trying to do something different for Turkey. We're not looking to work with 100 developers and build like a CTR prototype machine. We are hunting for developers that really want to build a studio and build, be the next Rollick, for argument's sake. Like that's the kind of ambition that we want. And we will provide, obviously the financial means, but we'll provide all the training, the tools to get you there. So, we're at the early stages of going through this process of meeting studios and, as I said earlier, having some sort of, test working relationship with them, because that's really important that our teams work well together, particularly in this pandemic, where sadly we can't get on a plane and break bread and get to know each other. So I think it's really important that we go through a short, non-exclusive period just to make sure that, the teams get on well and there's a good workflow, because that's super important. But yeah, we are very, very interested in the Turkey market, and we are looking to make a small number of both publishing deals as well and help people build studios, but we are looking for 1 or 2 sort of key partners that really, this is not about BoomBit, it's about them. We want to build their business in Turkey and use them as our hub to access all of the incredible talent that's in the Turkey market.
I will just mention one detail in case some people have missed it. You mentioned when you invest in the company, they can also do self-publishing in future. So it doesn't mean that BoomBit will do the publishing all the time, but you will help them to build their own publishing team, and potentially they will publish their own game as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We want these studios to be completely self-sufficient, right? And we want to transfer all UA, monetization, creative, ASO to the studio, right? And we will train them up. We'll give them training on the different mediation platforms, and then ultimately, as part of our investment, if they want to, start working with local studios in Turkey and become a publisher, we will help them do that. So that's very different to, the existing hyper-casual business model, right? Because they don't want to create mini businesses that effectively compete with themselves. creating a hub to bring developers through is a smart idea, and there's a few people doing that already. But yeah, we really want these studios, and we're doing this around the world. We have a couple operational already. We really want them to be truly self-sufficient, right? So to start with, we'll do everything a publisher would do, but the goal is over a period of time, we transition that to the studio.
All right, that's great, because I know this is not everyone is doing. So this is definitely a unique value proposition from BoomBit side. All right, my final question. Hypercasual is great right now. Tons of money is going on, a lot of talents, a lot of industry shift and investment is going on. But all trends might die. It might take some time. What do you think about the future of hypercasual?
Well, look, I think hypercasual now is, it's a great game genre despite the criticism it gets, and it's so big now that you can get, almost like you get in casual games, right? You can build games for a specific audience, right, that actually can sustain themselves. So, like our car-based games, for example, skew to more of a male demographic. Now, traditionally, you couldn't do that in hypercasual because you need to buy as many users as possible. They need to be roughly 50-50 male-female. So I think hypercasual is so big now, and you have such a huge global audience that you can specialize in certain types of hypercasual games. So I expect that to continue, where some studios are experts in certain types of games, whether it's role play or ASMR or puzzle games. Hybrid casual, again, I saw some PR about this today, about another game that's released. So there's a lot of talk about hybrid casual. And I know in Turkey, there's a couple of great studios looking at this and raising money for this. I definitely think this is where it's moving to, because of the increased competition in hyper casual now. It's super hard to get that low CPI, high retention. So I think it's natural that games are going to move into hybrid casual. But I think there's two ways to attack this, right? There's the sort of Archero clone way, and that's generally what I'm seeing right now, which is, the kind of RPG mid-core theme, the sort of like fantasy space wizards that for me is not hyper casual. And that is, we are talking to some studios in this space where we're really interested in what I think is more interesting, that will bring this global hyper casual audience up with you, is maintaining that hyper casual theme. So like a shooter, sport, keeping that sort of basic gameplay that they're used to, the same addictive sort of core loop, but it's just more of like I know it's a bit woolly, but like a medium meta to it. So, a bit more sort of like casual gameplay. And you'll be focusing more on day 7. There's going to be a high percentage of IEPs for sure. And there's definitely going to be a live ops component to it, but it should be in a way that this hyper casual audience coming up aren't even aware they're in this live op environment. So we've been quietly testing all of this in some of our games already. And we know that audience is there and looking for this kind of experience. But to do it, again, you need experience in other game genres to put this all together, right? So for us, we've seen this coming for 12 months now, and we're really excited about this space. But right now, I think everyone's talking about hybrid casual. We're just getting our head down and more interested in actually kind of testing, because there really are no established metrics for hybrid casual games, right? For me, Archero was, it was just a one-off, right? It was like Clash of Clans. And if it wasn't, and it was generally this new category, then it would have been established by now. So I think we're at the very earliest stages of learning what hybrid casual really is, trying to establish some benchmarks for it, in terms of like game testing, like CPI, day 1, day 7, day 30, which is unheard of in hyper casual. So I definitely believe that is where it's going to go. And I think the other trend that we've touched on already is, which for us at BoomBit we're really excited about, is self-publishing, right? We're seeing top studios now wanting to break free from this, hopping around publishers, changing their process for publisher A versus publisher B, and realizing that actually, with a few smart hires, some investment, and, there's loads of great tools in market now, like, like Pollen, like Sugar, like Uncapped, where you can get UA funding without giving any equity away in your business. you know, we're already starting to see some studios that are raising capital and publishing their own games now. So that's a trend that I think is going to accelerate. And at BoomBit, we are, you know, very excited about being part of accelerating this this trend. And then I think the final thing is just purely when it comes to hyper casual, just, you know, the competition. You talk to the developer community every quarter, it's getting more and more competitive, right? You're getting more developers, more studios launching. You know, the war between the publishers, the, you know, the cash being thrown around for CTRs is unbelievable. So, you know, that's why you've got so many developers coming to the fore and starting studios, because they've just got such great access to cash and capital right now from publishers, because they now need more CTR tests and prototypes than ever before to catch that, you know, that great game. So I expect this, you know, war to intensify, right? And I expect to see a lot more M&A and investments in the hyper casual space. You know, in terms of top studios, but also I think geographically now there's some very clear hubs that have got incredible talent, and there's some other parts of the world that are very up and coming that you're already seeing some publishers making some investments, opening some offices. So yeah, in summary, I don't think hyper casual is going anywhere. It's such a great industry to be part of. And I'm super excited to see where it's going to go, like in the next 12 months, let alone, I can't even think about beyond 12 months in hyper casual. But yeah, it's such a great industry to be part of. There's so many talented people, and you know, so many great publishers out there, and a lot of us, you know, frequently talk to each other, and the more that we all succeed, the better for all of us.
Well, that's a great summary. Hyper casual, they call it 2.0. I think it's almost equal to hybrid casual, like a Archero type of games. Well, BoomBit is looking for Turkish studios, but you listen the details, what kind of studios they are looking for. Thank you, Jon. Thank you for sharing insights for the meeting. And I guess that's all. In case you have any questions, I will share Jon's details in the comment below, and then you can reach out to him and ask your questions, and maybe you will work with BoomBit in future. Thank you.
Cheers, Batan. Thanks for having me.